Father, we're gathered here this evening to conduct matters of business. We pray that you would guide us, our hearts and minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought and speech. Father, impact our wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. And thank you for always being a source of wisdom. Amen. Pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Madam Manager.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We'll start this evening with the public comment period. As you know, this is an opportunity for citizens to come before the board and share their concerns. Each speaker this evening will have a maximum of 3 minutes to share their remarks until the 15-minute time limit is obtained. No time may be yielded to another speaker. We ask each speaker to come to the lectern and give us their name and their address. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Madam Manager. Madam Clerk.
Chairman and Commissioners, we have two public comment speakers this evening. Our first speaker is Ms. Kathy Greggs.
Thank you. Ms. Greggs. Ms. Greggs. Okay, Madam
Our
Clerk.
second speaker is Mr. Alex Mastella.
Mr. Mostello, welcome.
Never remove my mask, please.
Excuse me?
Can I remove my mask to speak? Thank you.
See, I had to get permission too, huh?
Yeah, sure. First question is this the appropriate context to give my opinion about the Cumberland County school mask mandates? You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the
Sure.
school thing, but yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all for allowing me to speak today, and those present. I prepared a speech because I haven't participated in context like this before, and to be honest with you, it's a little bit nerve-wracking for me, but it's something that I have deeply felt opinions about, so I'd like to express them to you all.
Well, we appreciate you being here. You don't have much time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so let me first begin by saying that I appreciate the level of pressure and responsibility that this group of community leaders must feel in determining how to respond to this public outcry. The amount of data and opinions and general uncertainty on this issue is hard to measure, and with the increasing variants of COVID-19, it's hard to determine what the signal is in all the noise with information that we have. My reason for coming to you today is to state my position that the mandating of compulsory masks wearing by children is ultimately ineffective for reaching your stated goals. In addition, I'm also concerned about the potential negative and unintended impacts that this mandate could have for the children of our community as a whole. So a lot of this comes down to a question of risk, and we take risks every day in our lives. I did some little statistical analysis this afternoon, and in North Carolina, you have a chance of 1 in about 5,200 of dying if you step foot in a car. We send our children off to school every day in cars. That's how most of our students get to school. However, because of the fact that we know that they need to get to school, we accept that risk. Now, by the statistics, if we follow those guidelines, we're sending about 400 students per day to their death, just by the statistics alone. But we know that that's not the case, because statistics are not everything. You have to look at the context. So I would like to bring the attention of the awareness of this committee to the context about what we know about the transmissibility of COVID-19. The most recent studies we have on COVID have been determined that a significant portion of the load is spread through aerosols. The data show that air saturation is actually the main source by which COVID-2 particles are spread. While the droplets are a source of infection, the amount of load-bearing particles in a droplet is nothing in comparison to the amount of found in saturated air. These particles are infinitesimally small and will not be caught by surgical masks. N95 and KN95 masks are not shown to be significantly effective against these aerosols. The aerosols must be specially filtered in order for that to be effective. For this reason, asking children to wear masks to stop the spread of COVID is not commensurate with the evidence that we have pertaining to the transmissibility. There's more to say, but you get my point. I understand that there are many different facts around this issue, but I think that ultimately there are no absolute holistic data that show us that what you're doing is objectively true.
Thank you so much for coming,
It is an
sir.
opinion, and I think that you should not take the ability
Your
of
time
parents.
is up, sir.
Sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to item number 1, which is approval of the agenda. First of all, the county attorney would like to give a very brief update to the board on the status of redistricting, and we would like to do that right before the closed session, if the board will allow that. In addition, Chairman Evans would like to pull item 3H1. This is the contribution to Martin Luther King Jr. Park and the historic Orange Street School. Chairman Evans would like to discuss the distribution to Orange Street School. And Mr. Chairman, those are the only changes that I have.
Okay, Madam Manager. Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
I would also ask to pull off the consent agenda, item 12. And if we're going to do H1, we have a discussion on the Martin Luther King too. Thank you.
Okay, can we get a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda with those
I'm
changes.
sorry, thank you, sir. Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
That is unanimous.
Okay, Madam Manager, presentations.
Yes, sir. I'm going to ask Assistant Manager Sally Shutt to introduce the next item.
Good evening. The county is inviting our residents to participate in 2 upcoming public meetings related to planning initiatives. So I'd like to invite Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Executive Director Hank Graham to come forward and tell you about the FAMPO meeting. He will be followed by Annette Mazzari, a planner in our Planning and Inspections Department, that will talk about the Spring Lake Area Land Use Plan meeting coming up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The FAMPO, or Fayetteville Area MPO, we're in the middle of conducting a multimodal congestion management process planning proceeding for the upcoming fiscal year. We started this process at the end or close of the last fiscal year. The multimodal, or all modes of transportation, congestion management process is a federally mandated process that we are required to conduct and establish a plan for the Fayetteville urbanized area. It not only includes all of Cumberland County, but parts of Harnett, Hoke, and Robeson counties as well, and some local governments within each. Through coordination and effort with our Public Information Office, they prepared a video that we are placing on the web page for the citizens of Cumberland County to be able to go and access a citizen survey. And we are hosting a public participation meeting on September the 28th, Tuesday, from 11:30 in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and also a second session from 5:30 in the afternoon to 7 o'clock at night for citizens that are working during the day and wish to come out and provide their comments and concerns on our traffic congestion throughout Cumberland County. In addition to that, we have the video that our public information.
Tuesday, September 28th, the Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or FAMPO for short, with the Cumberland County Planning and Inspections Department wants to hear from you. FAMPO is hosting a public meeting to discuss the multimodal congestion management process. They want to collect your input on traffic congestion in the Fayetteville area to include a final plan. The plan will make recommendations to improve the flow of traffic and will address various transportation modes. The meeting is Tuesday, September 28th, the Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or FAMPO for short, with the Cumberland County Planning and Inspections Department wants to hear from you. FAMPO is hosting a public meeting to discuss the multimodal congestion management process. They want to collect your input on traffic congestion in the Fayetteville area to include a final plan. The plan will make recommendations to improve the flow of traffic and will address various transportation modes. The meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, September 28th from 11:30 to 1 p.m. with the formal presentation starting at noon. The second meeting is from 5:30 to 7 p.m. with the formal presentation starting at 6. Both meetings, which are virtual, will have a question and answer period. You can sign up by visiting the website on your screen where you'll receive a Zoom link. For more information about this project, contact Deloma Graham at the number and email on your screen.
Good evening. I can exit out of this. So as was said, there is another planning effort going on with the community nearly simultaneously. So 2 days later, on the 30th, the comprehensive planning staff will be putting on a meeting in the Spring Lake area. And Public Information Office has also graciously provided us with a video.
Cumberland County Planning and Inspections invites Spring Lake area community members to attend a public open house meeting to help create a new Spring Lake area land use plan. The meeting will be held on September 30th at the Spring Lake Recreation Center located at 245 Roof Street. Attendees may arrive anytime between 6 and 8 p.m. For more information about the Spring Lake area land use plan, visit the website on your screen. Residents who cannot attend the meeting in person and want to provide feedback may do so by visiting the website or by calling 910-678-7612. We want to hear from you.
All right. So the current land use plan for the Spring Lake area was adopted in 2002. And county staff regularly updates these land use plans, and that time has come for the Spring Lake area. And this meeting will be the first in a series of public engagement efforts throughout that planning process. But as was mentioned in the video, we also have an exciting new tool that we have not yet used before, which is a website to increase our engagement. And this is the main page. There are 3 pages supporting it. Here you will find announcements, a values survey, which gathers demographics, information about land use plans in general, and at the bottom, some frequently asked questions. Okay, and then there's a page dedicated just to what a land use plan is, how it's made, and how it's applied, but also a background and information data page, which has additional surveys and things like demographic information about the area, population, housing, economics, and so forth. And if you get to the bottom, apologies, things are slow to load. There's also links to many documents. So our hope is that we can increase engagement, increase the diversity of our engagement, and create the best land use plan possible so that going forward, our land use recommendations as well as zoning recommendations and policy recommendations meet the goals and the values of the community. So, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation there. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to item number 3, your consent agenda.
Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
So just as a recap, Mr. Chairman, we've removed item 3H1 And we've also removed item 3H12. So you may want to ask for a motion on the consent agenda, less those two items we're pulling.
Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
unanimous.
Thank you.
And then, Mr. Chairman, the first item we've pulled is the contribution to Martin Luther King Jr. Park and Historic Orange Street restoration.
The reason that, and thank you, Madam Manager, the reason that I had asked that this be pulled is because we did vote unanimously to afford these both organizations with funding. But since we have been allocating funding to organizations, we have asked that they would come in and make a presentation to our board as to why we should submit funding for them, to request the funding for them. And that was on two occasions that I'm aware of. One with the Civil War Museum, and the other with the Martin Luther King Park, which, matter of fact, our vice chair had asked that we ask them to come in to make that presentation. And so they did it. Then during the process of the motion, which was done by our vice chair, the motion was also included Orange Street School, which caught everyone by surprise. I must admit, it caught your chairman by surprise. But in the moment of being very excited about the fact that we were honoring Dr. King in funding that particular part, I think that we got caught up in the excitement. So in order to be fair, in order for transparency, I think that with this, we need to ask, I would like to ask the board if we would take the decision to give $1.5 million of money to Orange Street School back to our agenda session and ask the representatives of Orange Street to come and make the presentation. And if that's not the case, then I would like to ask our vice chair to please explain to us why we are giving Orange Street $1.5 million.
First of all, we're not giving $1.5 million. That was never the vote in that situation. And I don't have a problem with Orange Street School coming to make that. So I'd make a motion that we take both of these items and put them on the October the 18th agenda for the Board of Commissioners, and that will give them an opportunity to come back to the agenda session and have Orange Street School make that, and we can do them both at the same time.
Second.
Question. To our vice chair and also to the individual that made the second, it would not be fair to have the Martin Luther King Committee to come back once again to make another presentation to the board. And it would not be fair to delay any action to this organization because they have done what we asked them to do. There was never no question, no concern, or anything said about Orange Street School until that particular day, until the vice chairman made the motion for Martin Luther King Park and included Orange Street School. I don't have any problem with giving Orange Street School money for whatever it is that they may do, but at least be transparent and let us know what they're doing with the monies. And yes, I misspoke about the $1.5 million, but it is taxpayers' monies that we're talking about. And so, I would like to make a friendly amendment to your motion. You would not accept it.
No, sir.
Okay.
And mine wasn't that the Martin Luther King had to come back to make their presentation. They've always made their presentation. That Orange Street would come make their presentation, and we vote both of them on the October 18th board meeting.
And that was my understanding.
Right, that was.
My second is for Orange Street to come and make the presentation.
Okay.
You got Mr. Booth.
So,
Which, Mr. Chairman, I thought that's what you were asking for.
no, sir. What I'm asking is for Orange Street School to come in and make their presentation.
Okay.
We've decided on both at that time, but we did not receive any visit from Orange Street School talking about their need for monies. And the thing about it is, I think everybody was caught off guard because of the questions that were being asked after the vote was taken. So, but it's up to the board. I'll go along with the board, and it's also taxpayers' dollars that you're dealing with. So whatever the board decides, I'm with. Yes, Commissioner Bruce.
Yeah, by way of discussion on the motion in the second, I agree with the part about it's all part of a budget ordinance amendment right now. So if we start picking them apart, I don't know if we'll have to do two different budget amendments, since one may go forward and one may not. I was one of the ones that was caught off guard, and I appreciate your fiscal conservative nature. I don't mean to. I appreciate your watchdog status on that. I really do. And I'm very familiar with Orange Street, having been over there, in fact, with Mr. Adams on a number of occasions, putting roofs on those houses over there and everything by way of law day and everything over the years with our local attorneys and judges. But since everybody else was feeling so benevolent, one of my biggest concerns about this thing is we plan and we plan and we pass and we reconsider and we pass and we reconsider, and if we look back, I mean, we're not digging too many shovels in dirt right now. And so the fact that we have the money available and we have to commit it by a certain deadline, I don't want to go back and then get in the legal dilemma of having to do a budget amendment for one, budget ordinance for another. I had the questions, and so I had ample opportunity since the Thursday meeting to get as much information as I wanted to. It's not hidden anywhere about what the plans are for the Orange Street area, and I've made myself, I'm at peace. So I would just think we just ought to, we did it, we ought to move on, and I'm not trying to vote against anybody. I think if we have the money to do nonprofits and to help people out here, that's our number one thing, is to improve the quality of life for everybody in the Cumberland County area. So I was one of the ones that was caught off guard, and I used the time from the Thursday meeting till now to become content. I didn't ask that it be taken off the agenda. I could have, and I'm content with what we did on Thursday, and I'm ready to move forward, or whatever the board wants to do. But I just want to let you know, since I was the one that expressed the concern, that my concern has been answered.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Chairman. I was caught off guard as well. Although I don't have a problem with giving any money to Orange Street, my issue is it is not fair for any commissioner to just throw an item up into a motion from the ARP. The process is that we take it to the committee.
This wasn't ARP money.
Okay.
This is money coming out of this was not ARP money.
Okay, so.
Neither one of these were ARP money.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
so,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. Thank you for telling me that.
Yes. Because I would have taken it to the committee, but this
If,
wasn't ARP money.
if we had a presentation by Martin Luther King Committee, I was thrown because I knew nothing about what was going on with Orange Street, and the motion came forward with both of them together. And it didn't give me any time to research, do homework, or even know where the money was going to. So it was either do or don't, and that was my issue with that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Stewart.
So,
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Before I call the vote.
Comment?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Commissioner Keith.
Yeah, I caught off guard myself, but I supported the Martin Luther King part of it. I just want to hear somebody's presentation instead of just giving them money. So, you know, I'm okay with tonight if we want to approve the Martin Luther King or we want to put them all together, but I would like to see what taxpayer money's going to from a committee instead of just giving it to them without a formal request.
Commissioner Adams.
And that was the spirit of the motion, Mr. Keefe. It's just that they come in. I don't have a problem with them coming in
with
and
you.
doing that.
I'm with
And we
you.
just keep them together and do it on the October 18th meeting. I think that's what everybody would want to hear from them, and they ought to come and present.
Let's find a way to put that together so we can vote on it.
Yeah. I
Well-
made that motion.
Well, before I call for the vote, as I said, I think we're setting a standard here where citizens that are listening to us and watching us, we set one set of standards for one thing and set another standards for another. So what our citizens are hearing now, regardless of what the issue is that you have concerns about that need money, you just go to the Board of Commissioners, they're going to give you money, regardless of what you're using them for. And it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair to delay any movement for an organization that did everything to the T that we asked them to do. And we still want to penalize them. And penalizing them, yes, is delaying action on them. And you still want to penalize them for it. So, if anybody in Cumberland County need any money for anything, come see the Board of Commissioners. Because we do not ask questions or voice concerns about the way nothing is presented to us. Commissioner.
I want to ask the manager, when is the last time we had everybody to come to staff to present before we allocated any funds? How many years has it been?
If you're referring to outside agencies, we do that through the budget process.
Okay, always during the budget process?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. My personal preference is to leave this like it is. That's my personal preference.
Yes, sir.
Leave it.
We ready for the vote?
Okay. Is there a motion?
Yes.
What, can we get it again?
It was a motion to have the Orange Street School come in and present at the agenda setting conference, and that both of these then would be, after whatever happens at the agenda setting conference with that, that they will be put on the October 18th Board of Commissioners agenda. And that was the second.
Is there a second?
It's already been seconded. It's already been seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioner Lancaster, Counsel Keith, Adams. Voting in opposition, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Booth, and Stewart. The motion passes.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. The next item that was put on the agenda was item 3H12. That is the American Rescue Plan funding recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, I asked that to be pulled. That's a committee, came from a committee from Mr. Keith, who chaired that committee, Commissioner Stewart, and I was on that committee also. It went to the agenda setting conference, and I think there was some excellent work done. I didn't want to pass this over just on the consent agenda. I think it was important enough. We spent, what, $34 million, Commissioner Stewart, Commissioner Keith, about $34 million, this whole board. And I think what was happening, some of that stuff, I mean, all of that stuff was beneficial to this community. And I thought that I would ask the manager, so that I didn't catch you off guard, that they would have that for us today.
Yes, sir. We have it on the slide.
Fantastic.
Okay, there we are. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, would you like for me to walk through the items?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Just briefly.
Okay, so the first item is generators for emergency shelters. As you know, during severe weather events, we open emergency shelters. We want to be better prepared and to have generators at multiple facilities so that in the event the electricity is impaired at an emergency shelter, we have backup generators. In addition, as you know, opioid overdoses are significant these days, and so the committee has recommended purchasing Narcan for the sheriff's office and all of our volunteer fire departments for $140,000 for 1 year until the opioid settlement comes in and we can continue that program. I'm going to lump a couple things together. The committee has 5 programs that are application-based programs for citizens, businesses, and nonprofits. They've allocated $2 million for a mortgage assistance program, $1.5 million for rental assistance, $3.5 million for small businesses that have been impacted by COVID, $3.5 million to aid to nonprofits, and $2.5 million as first-time home buyers programs. Just to give a little bit of an update about those 5 application-based programs, we're currently working, County Manager's Office, County Legal, and Finance to develop an application and the parameters. We will bring that information back to the ARP committee at our meeting on October the 4th, the meeting after the commissioners' meeting. In addition to that, we're partnering with the community college and the Mid-Carolina Council of Governments for a trade job training program in the amount of $2 million. In addition, we are funding $500,000 for a mobile technology lab and a bookmobile. This is an opportunity to assist those that especially may not have access to computers or computer labs, and also to broadband. This will be a mobile unit that especially hits those census tracts that have been more impacted by COVID. We're also looking at expanding affordable housing in the Shaw Heights area. $10 million has been set aside for that. $250,000 has been set aside to secure either a site or a renovation of a current facility as a homeless shelter. In addition, $5 million has been set aside for much-needed sewer in the area of Shaw Heights. And then finally, as you know, we have many areas that do not have county water or sewer, and so $2 million has been set aside to evaluate the feasibility of expanding water and sewer in those areas where it's not available.
And I think the chairman of that committee just whispered to me that this was our short-term goals. They're short-term, medium, and
Yes.
long-term.
Thank you. Thank you,
And these were
Commissioner
the
Keith.
short-term ones that we would get underway right away as to the relief part of the American Relief Program, which went directly to people and saving lives. So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve this allocation of funds out of the American Rescue Plan.
Fantastic.
Second.
Thank you very much. Despite of what you heard earlier, there are some things that we do good. And so I want to thank the ARP committee for what you have done to help make Cumberland County a better place to live for all citizens. And for that, I'm very grateful. Motion been made, second. All in favor?
That is unanimous.
Thank you, Board.
Mr. Chairman, that brings us to item number 4, your public hearings. We'll begin with 4A, the fiscal year 2023 Community Transportation Grant application for the 5311 grant, and I believe Mr. Hank Graham is going to present this item. Mr. Graham.
Welcome, Mr. Graham, again.
Thank you. This also is an additional annual grant funding program provided to us as pass-through dollars from the federal government or Federal Transit Administration. The Section 5311 grant will be used and applied with our Community Transportation System program. The dollar amounts for the administrative cost of this program will total $184,813 with a local share match of $27,722. It is 15%, the local match is 15% of the total cost share of the grant. We utilize these funds on an annual basis to continue the administrative, operational cost and efforts in order to provide community transportation services for citizens of Cumberland County. So we are required to hold or conduct a public hearing and provide that information to NCDOT in order to obtain these grant funds.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Chairman, at this point, if you would open the public hearing.
We open the public hearing. Are there any speakers, ma'am?
There
Madam
are no
Clerk?
speakers.
No speakers. Close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you very much, sir, for your presentation. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item 4B is a public hearing on the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant. This is a grant that we apply for every year from the Sheriff's Office. We do this in conjunction with the City of Fayetteville Police Department. As you can see, the grant allocation is $182,000 in total, $27,810 for the Sheriff's Office, and roughly $155,000 for the City of Fayetteville. And so we use these funds to pay for the connection to the SBI and the FBI network for our mobile data terminals. And so we do this through a memorandum of agreement with the City of Fayetteville. This evening, we're asking that the board conduct the public hearing and then approve the memorandum of understanding, complete the certification and assurances by the Chief Executive Officer, and authorize the county manager to sign the application.
Fantastic. Over the public hearing, Madam Clerk, is there any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Thank you. Close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
What's wrong?
Memorandum of understanding.
No, that's okay. He's quicker than I am.
Oh.
Second.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Under item 4C, we have the Community Development Program Year 2020 Draft Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, better known as the CAPER. I ask our Community Development Director, Ms. Dee Taylor, to present this item. Welcome, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you.
Oh, she's already here. Hello.
Good evening, Commissioners. What you have before you is the detailed consolidated annual performance and evaluation report. And the slides that I have here will just basically provide an overall summary of the accomplishments during the last program year. So the CAPER is a report that we have to submit to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development each year at the end of our grant cycle. And it outlines the funding resources that we receive from HUD, which is the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, and the Home Investment Partnerships Program Fund, better known as HOME. So during the reporting period, Cumberland County received approximately $865,000 in CDBG funds, and we received also $398,000 in Home Investment Partnership Program funds. In addition to our regular annual entitlements, in the last program year, we also received additional CDBG funding to address the pandemic crisis. And this was made possible through HUD, through the CARES Act. And we received approximately $944,000 in those funding amount. The entitlement funding that we received, the CDBG and HOME, with the CDBG funds, we have to make sure that it addresses one of 3 national objectives. So at least 70% of the funds that we expend of our CDBG funds have to benefit low to moderate income persons. And then we are allowed to expend up to 30% to address other needs, such as eliminating slum and blighted conditions in our community, as well as addressing an urgent need, such as a presidential declared disaster or pandemic crisis. As I described earlier, the CAPER is submitted at the end of the program year. And this CAPER that you have before you is the first year of our reporting for the 5-year strategic plan that covers the period 2020 through 2024. As you recall, a couple years ago, we hired a consultant to assist the county with identifying the priority needs in our community, and we outlined the objectives and goals and how we will use our funding allocation to address those priority needs. So based on community input, the main priorities that we identified that we need to address during the next 5 years relate to expanding housing opportunities, especially for those who are low to moderate income residents, addressing the special needs populations. This includes your elderly population, those who have a disability, addressing homelessness, and addressing economic development activities. We will also like to use our funding to address any non-housing community development activities, which includes expanding public services, public facilities, and infrastructure. So this past program year, we used our funding to address housing and special needs population by providing approximately $276,000 of CDBG funds and $131,000 of home funds for the acquisition and rehabilitation of 14 housing units. And as you can see with the pie charts above, the age of these housing units, 100% of those housing units were at least 20 years or older. 62% were 40 years of age. The ages of our owner and occupants of those housing units, 77% are 55 and older. Community development also expended approximately $197,000 of CDBG CDBG funds and approximately 7,000 of home funds for the acquisition, clearance, and infrastructure of the Spring Lake Affordable Housing Project. This is a project where we're partnering with a community housing development organization, which is Kingdom Community Development, for the construction of 5 single-family housing. That project is still pending construction of the 5 units. We've also used approximately $282,000 of the CDBG funds to cover the staff costs and other housing-related costs used to carry out those projects, and $117,000 of CDBG funds for the installation of HVAC systems in the Hillside Manor apartments, which is used to house elderly residents. Now, as far as addressing community development and homeless needs, we put our funding towards rehabbing 2 transitional housing programs. Approximately $127,000 was used to rehab one of the buildings located at the Mayo Ruiz Fellowship Homes. This program is used to provide housing and services to those who are homeless and have a substance use disorder. We also rehab the Reveille Retreat program, which is managed by Endeavors, and this program is used to house homeless families. In addition, we set aside funding to use for public services. We expended approximately $548,000 to partner with nonprofits and other public and private agencies to provide human services in the community. This includes providing free prescription medication, eye exam, dental services. Also rental assistance. We partner with 3 agencies to provide rental assistance in our community prior to receiving funding from the federal government through the Treasury Department. We also partner with Cumberland Health Net to help with supporting the coordinated entry referral system. This system is mandated by HUD for those agencies that receive Continuum Care Program funding to utilize in coordinating housing and services for the homeless population. We also funded certain shelter operations for the Salvation Army, and we used some of the funding as the required match for Cumberland County's Continuum Care Program that we manage through Robbins Meadow Transitional Housing and the Safe Homes for New Beginnings program, both used to support housing and services for those who are homeless. The Cumberland, and I want to mention the amount that we expended for public services. Normally, under our entitlement program, HUD would only allow up to 15% to be used for public services, but because of the pandemic crisis, they did lift that cap, suspended that for that program year. Otherwise, we normally will only be able to use about a little over 100,000, but we were able to use more, especially towards rental assistance. We expended our additional CDBG CV funds, approximately $226,000, to fund the Public Health Department to expand their health services as it relates to testing. And that's how we are able to meet one of the CDBG national objectives of meeting an urgent need. We used general funds in the amount of $113,000. This is the contribution made by the city and the county to fund the Homeless Management Information System, which is mandated also by HUD for our homeless providers to utilize. And this funding also funds the data and evaluation analyst position and other services that provide aid to those who are homeless. And this past program year, we use the funding for services that meet the gaps in our community, whereas in the past we used it for rental assistance. This past program year, we used it for addressing hotel stays, providing hotel stays for those who needed a place to stay during White Flag. The Continuum Care Program, I've gone over, but we used HUD's Continuum Care Program funds in an amount of $122,000, again, for the transitional housing and permanent supportive housing and CLC planning activities, along with general funds to match, provide as required match for that program. And as far as meeting the economic development needs, we expended a little over $203,000 of the CDBG CV funds to provide grants of up to $10,000 to 22 businesses, small businesses in our community. And as you can see by the pie chart, majority of the funding went towards restaurant and food services that comprised the 32%, and the personal care services such as hair salons and barbershops, which comprised of 18% of that funding. And another way to look at how we expended our funds based on the entitlement allocation, we expended, again, majority of our funding towards public services and housing rehab with our CDBG funds, followed by our housing project delivery. Again, that covers staff costs as well as any type of other housing-related costs such as legal fees and so forth. We also expended 12% of those funds for single-family housing and 10% for general administration, and again, 7% for the multifamily housing for the elderly. Home expenditures, which mainly provides funding towards housing-related projects. So 77% of that was expended on housing rehab projects. This year it was it was slower than previous years. We got off to a rough start during the first and second quarter of our program year, mainly due to the pandemic, but we were able to ramp up during the latter part of the the last 2 quarters. And we expended 5% of our home funds for new construction, again, and 18% for general admin. And here's another way to look at our CDBG CV expenditures, where you see majority of was expended for public services and economic development activities. The CAPER was made available at several locations from September 3rd through September 20th. And tonight we're asking the board to hold a public hearing to allow for additional public comment. Thank you.
And thank you for your presentation, Ms. Taylor. We appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, open the public hearing. Are there any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Said no action needed.
There's no action.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and board members, this moves us into our uncontested rezoning cases. I failed to mention at the beginning of the agenda that item 4D, case P2136, is now contested. So, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we make that 4L and move that to the contested section.
Wait a minute.
Item 4D, it's case P2136, is now contested, and we need to move that under contested cases.
And that was 4D.
D,
When were we aware that it was going to be contested?
when someone signed up this evening.
Okay, yes, Commissioner Council.
I just wasn't clear.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So we'll start with item 4E, case P2131. Mr. Howard.
Thank you very much, Madam Manager. Just bear with me just a second, please. Good evening, Commissioners. So this was a case that was continued from our August meeting at the request of the applicant, so we're bringing it back to you this evening. The case, this case P21-31, as you can see by the location map, sits pretty much right at the Stedman town limits. The applicant owner is Nicholas Brad and John David Hancock. The request is to go from RR, Rural Residential District, to R7.5 RR for a conditional zoning. The intent is for a residential subdivision for up to a 77-lot, 0-lot line subdivision for about 25 acres. You can see by the location map the area that's crosshatched in red here. This is Clinton Road that sits here. This is Front Street that starts to head into Stedman, and you can see it sits just west of Forte Road. But you can see, maybe I'll offer a little bit of coloration, that currently the tract itself is forested and vacant. We do have some single-family homes and some very light institutional uses, as you can see, just right across the street in the blue highlighted there on the map. The zoning itself, I should also point out, is 7.5. As you notice, all of the zoning that's currently out there is R10. That is a dormant district right now in our zoning district. So the comparable district in today's ordinance would be 7.5. So the applicant is requesting 7.5, which on a day-to-day basis would be comparable to what the zoning is already out there for R10. So we took this to the planning board. They had supported it. So we got a board recommendation from the planning board. Staff had recommended, and we didn't have anybody speak in opposition at the planning board meeting itself. If you want me to go into the case, I'll be happy to do that. And I believe the applicant is also here to speak on his case if you have any questions as well.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
We have 2 speakers this evening. Both are in favor. Our first speaker is Nick Hancock.
Mr. Hancock, thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioners, for having us here today. I'd really like to just defer my time to any questions that you may have about this piece of property or this future development.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Booth.
Yeah. Do you own any other property to get in other than that one way?
Yes, sir.
Do you have someone coming off of Fort or Forte or whatever it's called, or another?
We actually own that right there as well.
Is that beside the apartments, or is that the
That's
apartments?
beside, the apartments are here,
Okay.
and this is ours as
And
well.
how many acres or square foot is that?
That's included in the 25.
All right. Why isn't it looped in then?
This right here is within the city limits. This right here is outside of the city limits.
Yes, we're just hearing the rezoning case just for
Well, what is that one zone then?
R10.
R10?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, do you have any plans to have any other access to it other than that coming off of Old Clinton Road?
No, sir, this is it.
Okay. All right. What does it back up to on the bottom there, A1?
This
Is it a farm, working farm, dead land?
Dead land. This is actually the right of way to the railroad that no longer exists.
Okay. Are you, as part of the plans that were submitted, is there something wider than that entrance? I mean, you could use it for entrance, but are you going to use it for an entrance or just have one single lane driveway going out there?
No, sir, we're gonna have a adequate
Okay.
standard entryway. Yes, sir.
And does it have water?
Water and sewer.
Water and sewer, all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is for Mr. Howard. You got Mr.
Hancock.
Howard. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Howard.
Oh.
Yeah, you're good. So, just so everybody understands, because we don't normally see R.75. I mean, it's kind of odd, right? So that looks to me like one house per every quarter acre?
I'm doing, go ahead.
Sir, there's Sandy Creek and the neighborhood down Front Street are lots less than R75 currently. And Sandy Creek was just approved here recently, within the last year.
Yeah, we just disapproved one about 2 weeks ago that was right on there too, that was less dense than that. But, so there is water and sewer?
Yes, sir.
Right now on
Yeah,
this
I'll
property?
go to the next slide. So you can see you have
And-
sediment, water, and sewer that is.
Okay, and is that a floodplain there?
That indicates hydric soils,
Okay.
right, which is not necessarily floodplains.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Commissioner Adams.
I just want to make sure, because when I looked at this, it said PWC water and sewer utilities are available, and the town of Stedman has it. This is outside the town of Stedman. Is there water and sewer that's
Yes, there
going
is.
to all of these houses, these
Yes.
77 lots?
Yes.
Are there
Sure.
are there any
Permission to
more
speak?
questions?
We
Yes,
did
sir.
reach out to PWC and did a capacity study, and they replied back that we would be available for city water and sewer. at this
Available,
point.
so I mean, it's already there, the line's already there?
The main line is on Clinton Road, and there's also a lift station on Fort Road.
So you got to tap into it, or you?
Yes, sir. We have to go through the town of Stedman.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So there is none there, you just got to do that.
That's correct.
And
It's
that's one-
actually a requirement on his conditions that you would be approving that he has to connect to those.
And I didn't see that either. Let me see. I didn't see that. Y'all just be killing
That-
that.
Yeah, I didn't see that either. That's why I was asking, and I should have waited till you put this one up there, but I know it's close right there, you know, another 500 yards this way or that way, and it is or isn't, so.
Yes, so Commissioner Adams, if you look at, on the condition sheet, which we attach in your packet, it's number 4 that basically requires they have
But
to connect to the water.
it's not in the
system.
motion. If it's not in the motion, it can be in the packet all it wants to, but it's not in the motion.
Yeah, but when you adopt the conditional zoning, you're adopting all of this.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, Commissioner Keefe.
Nope, I'm already out.
You already out?
Yep.
Okay, are there any more questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Our second speaker in favor this evening is Mr. Philip Strickland.
Welcome, Mr. Strickland.
Thank you. The only thing I will address, unless there are additional questions to those that were asked, is just that there was a mention of the hydric soils. We did, in 2008, we have an approved letter for approved jurisdictional determination from the Corps of Engineers that says the entire 25 acres is uplands and that there's no wetlands on the property. That letter expired in 2013, so we did contract with a firm to do an updated approved jurisdictional determination wetland study, and that has been completed, which I brought with me, and we are communicating with the Corps today and just waiting for the final approval, but all communication has been positive to this point.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Yeah. So this, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
sorry, Commissioner Booth.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, I'm
I'm
on.
sorry.
Okay, now I'm getting confused with the, it's in the packet, it's not in the packet thing again. Now, is that also in there in any way, shape, or form, or is that just like a little extra bonus?
That's a little extra bonus.
Okay, so it's not in the motion that we would make?
No.
And adopting the ordinance and everything, or the change, the core thing is not in there at all, right?
Well, I mean, like as a part of the condition sheet, we do say they have to go through all federal and state permitting agencies in order to be able to get their development approved. That's all part of the conditional zoning application.
All right, is there anything that we could do as far as approving it and then the core say no? Or do we trump the Army Corps of Engineers?
I don't think you trump the Army Corps of Engineers. No, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, let me clarify something. Mr. Howard, you pointed out at number 4 on the conditions that address the water and sewer. I would ask that you've got at the end of that on-site septic tanks are not allowed. I think that needs to also include wells as long as they are, because it doesn't actually say that it's connected, says no certificate of occupancy shall be issued until central water and sewer area are available. So you've got on-site septic tanks, but it should be on-site septic tanks and wells are not allowed on a 7.5 lot. So I would ask that you make that amendment, and they would have to agree to that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney.
And then your motion would include all the conditions stated there, as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Are there any more speakers, Madam Clerk?
One question.
Commissioner Keefe, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I noticed this wasn't unanimous with the planning board. It looked like it was a fairly contested. It wasn't anywhere close to being unanimous. It was pretty tight, right?
It was 6-3. I mean.
6-3.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the capacity of the schools. I mean, 77 houses is a lot of houses.
Okay.
To go in there, these are going to be, probably houses for school-age kids and everything. All the enrollments are pretty tight. But what was the major opposition from the board members?
I don't think there was a whole lot of discussion on it, because, I mean, we had one person that spoke in favor, then nobody spoke in opposition. I think there was just very little deliberation, and they just had a vote.
It's just kind of surprising, because 2 weeks ago, we were here and around the same area and had 50 people.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, did these same people were they out of the what do you call
Half-mile radius.
The half-mile radius? I
whatever it is
mean,
that you get noticed.
how far out did the half-mile radius go? Because you got 25 acres, so
Right.
that's, if you go to the center of 25 acres, I think you're still on the property in half-mile.
Yeah. No, I mean, so like our standard mailing protocol right now, which we had modified, because we had some conversations about that. We used to do split mailings. Our standard mailing right now is that if you're in a town or in a town's MIA, which we deem to be a little bit more of an urban area, it's a 600 foot. If you're outside of the MIA or anywhere else in the unincorporated area, we mail out at 1,100 feet. So we try to take into account how close you are to a town, how close you are to population, and everything like that. Yeah. Yeah, we got you. Yeah, 600 feet was the mailing radius for this one.
Okay.
We're ready for a motion.
Are there any more speakers, ma'am?
There are no further speakers.
Let's close the public hearing. Are there any questions from the board again? If not, is there a motion?
Okay. For case
Yes, ma'am.
P 21-31, I move to approve the rezoning request from RR Rural Residential District to R 7.5 Residential/CZ Conditional Zoning, allowing up to 77 lots, 0 lots line subdivision, and find the approval requires an amendment to the currently adopted Stedman area land use map, and that the Board of Commissioners should not require any additional request or application for amendment to said map. The conceptual plan proposal will allow a density and lot size that would be comparable to lots in the surrounding area and zoning. And furthermore, the requested conditional zoning will ensure a subdivision plan proposal with recommended conditions that help mitigate any compatibility concerns with the existing land uses and surrounding zoning.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Those voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council Chairman Evans, and Commissioner Stewart. Voting in opposition, Commissioners Keefe, Commissioner Adams, and Commissioner Booth. It passes.
Let me, Mr. Chairman, let's clarify for the record, because it's not actually in the motion, but the conditions that Commissioner Council referenced, let's be clear that it's the conditions stated in this agenda package as amended, okay? Let's make sure is that okay, language to add to your motion, Ms. Council? That the conditions are as stated in, the conditions are stated in this agenda package.
Yes, I'm sorry. Should I just have said that?
You're good. As long as everybody that's voted for is okay with that being in your motion, that it is, all right?
All right.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, Madam Manager.
Yes. Item 4F is case P21-45.
Thank you very much, Madam Manager. You can see that this sits up closer toward the Wade Godwin area of the county. The applicant is a Linder Weber Davis. The request is to go from A1 to an R40A. The intent is just simply to add a second manufactured home on the site. As you can see what's around there, you can see that this sits on Dunn Road. I'm sorry, I should have gave you a little bit of a reference. There's Dunn Road sitting next to I-95, and there's Smithfield Road that just sits up to the north. You can see where that is. But primarily what you have in the area is you have a lot of farm and other types of manufactured home and single-family homes. So it's very sparsely populated. You can see the zoning is pretty much all A1. There is R40A that sits just north of here up on the Main Street or on Dunn Road, as you can see on the map. There is water and a PWC force main that sits out there. But again, this went to the planning board and it passed on a unanimous recommendation with staff recommending it. So, and it was plan compliant as well too. So I'll be glad to go a little further if you'd like to.
All right, thank you, sir. We're going to open the public hearing. Are there any?
There are no speakers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Close the public hearing. Any questions or discussion? If not, can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A second? Yes.
You gotta read it.
Oh, you got to read it.
In case P21-45, I move to approve the rezoning request made on the agricultural district to R4A residential district and find that the request is consistent with the Wade Study Area Land Use Plan, which calls for low-density residential. Approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest because R40A residential district would allow dwelling types and a density that would be compatible in harmony and surrounding the land use activities and zoning.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
That is unanimous.
Thank you. Madam Manager.
Item 4G is case P21-48.
Very much, Madam Manager. Moving right along. You can see by the map, this is located just south of Fayetteville in the southwestern area of the county along Cumberland Road, as the star indicates. Pretty busy map, so I'll try to...
Go back again, let me see. You know, on Cumberland Road, I always like to know. All right, go ahead.
Why, sir?
We're getting a lot of activity out there, right?
No water.
Judging by that map, I don't know if you can read
water
that.
sewer out there, that's fine.
Well, you can see the map, so it's pretty busy. I don't know if I want to explain that one, but you can see the property itself is highlighted. I'm sorry, it's highlighted here in the red. You can see it sits on the corner of Everett Street. For those of you that know Cumberland Road, I know I travel this way every day going to work. This is Ireland, which is a major cut through going through town. Sits right there on that corner. The request is to go from C2P to CP. The intent is to put an outside flea market, a small scale outdoor bazaar type of a place. The applicant's Brian Barber for just a little over a third of an acre. As I said, this is a pretty busy area. It's pretty much surrounded right now with a lot of homes. You do see on Ireland, it's a four corners sort of situation for some commercial, but for the most part, you can see a lot of neighborhoods back in through here. This is a little bit cleaner version of the zoning map with some coloration, so hopefully this could provide a little bit more detail. But you can see that we have C1P all along here, so we do have commercial zoning pretty much up and down the stretch here. It does back up to some neighborhoods, which, as I stated before, the R10 is a dormant district, so that's the equivalent of a 7.5 by our current code. So yeah, that's about it. It went to the planning board. Staff had recommended it. It was plan compliant. The planning board had recommended it by a full vote. If you got any questions, I'll be happy to go further into the presentation if need be.
I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So you said this is going to be a commercial development. It's
0.3 acres.
0.38 acres. And it's a flea market. They're going to have parking. They're going to have, I mean, what kind of setback? Can you really put a building up on there with the parking that they're going to need for that? What are the setbacks going to be required for a building there? And parking?
For a CP, I believe parking can go into the setbacks. There's certain things that can go into a setbacks. But
Okay.
as far as the setback for a CP, the front is 50 and then it's 30 on the side and 30 on the rear.
Okay, thank you.
But it doesn't have to be used for a flea market once we rezone it.
Right. Could be anything.
True.
Almost.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Booth.
Yeah, and my question again, do the current owners own anything more than the third, 4/10 of an acre?
No, sir.
I don't know if they were trying to catch up with the rest of their property or something.
Okay. Let's open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, is there any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Let's close the public hearing. Are there any further discussion or questions? If not, is there a motion? Ooh. Is there a motion?
I don't have a problem with it. Mr. Chair, I recommend approval of rezoning request from C2P Plan Service and Retail District to CP Plan Commercial District from the August 17, 2021 meeting for the reasons stated and as fully reflected in the minutes of the Planning Board meeting, which are incorporated herein by reference.
Second.
Question, quick comment. I have a question. I was listening to Commissioner Adams talk about water. Would you like to expound on that, sir?
Well, up and down Cumberland Road, they have all kind of water and sewer I mean, the whole area has, that's been one of the primary concerns of mine way back when we started up and down Cumberland Road.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
We just piecemealing this thing slowly down the road in terms of rezoning all this stuff, and it's gonna come to a head at some point out there. That's always been my concern out on Cumberland Road.
Is there a problem with water or sewer or anything there, sir?
I think it's more of the sewer concern. I did meet with PWC and asked them about future plans, about what kind of speculation that you could have for going out there and just proactively laying lines. Of course, it all boils down to money. So, I mean, they're saying, I tossed around some ideas of possibly doing partnerships or whatever, but we did have the conversation. But, yeah, so I don't know if it's in their long-term plans right now for laying something out there as far as from them doing it.
So now see why silence was golden. All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council, and Keefe. Voting in opposition, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Booth, and Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. The next item is 4G, Case P 21-50.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, I'm sorry, just trying to switch gears a little bit here, sorry. So as you can see by the highlighted star, this area is out toward the Chickenfoot area off Yarborough, near Yarborough Road. As a matter of fact, it does sit on Yarborough Road. You see by the star. The applicant's Robert Spencer. They are requesting from A1 to go to R40. The intent is just to simply subdivide their current property into 2 lots. The idea from our conversations, as I understand it, with the applicant was to basically do a recombination plat of that lot. You can see the line that goes through the middle and then recombine it into 1 lot, then subdivide it into 2 so they can put 2 homes out there. Currently out there, you can see, I'm sorry, I should back up a little bit. Here's Yarborough Road, but you can see Chickenfoot. You can see it sits right across the street from the Creek Bar. Pretty much a sparse area, but growing area out there. You can see it's primarily some single family and multifamily. Zoning, you can see, we do have R40 that's down here. That's a subdivision that you can see. But pretty much it's A1 and as far as the predominant zoning out there. So this also went to the planning board and received a recommendation. Staff recommended it. It was plan compliant. So if there's any questions, I can go further if desired.
Open the public hearing, Madam Clerk. Is
There are no speakers.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
Close the public hearing. Any questions or comments?
Again, no sewer out here?
There's water, no
water,
sewer.
but no sewer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I don't know where I am.
I'll make the motion. In case P 21-50, I move to approve the rezoning request from A1 Agricultural District to R40A Residential District and find the request is consistent with the South Central Land Use Plan, which calls for farmland designation. Approval request is raised when the public interest at the district's request is in harmony and surrounding existing land use and zone. It's a motion.
Is there a second? Second, thank you, Commissioner Council. All in favor?
Chairman Evans, are you voting in?
Against.
Very good. Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council, Keith, Adams, Booth, and Commissioner Stewart. Voting in opposition, Chairman Adams.
Madam Manager.
The final uncontested case is case P 21-51.
Yes, sir.
All right, just trying to cue it up here. Same sort of area. You can see just south of Fayetteville as you're heading out towards the Hope Mills area, and pretty much the central western part of the county. You can see that this is also Cumberland Road. This is, and I hope I'm not butchering this, it's either Natal or Natal, if you could.
Natal.
Natal Road.
Natal Road. All right, thank you. So I learned something tonight. So the applicant owner is Pure Later Filters, which actually encompasses this site right here that's currently zoned MP. The agent's Larry Keeney and Associates. The request is to go from R10 to MP, which is our heavier industrial classification for about where the intent is for warehousing and storage and expansion for the existing building that is out there. As I said before, you can see the current uses that it's pretty much backs up to the railroad. So from staff's perspective, it was pretty much ideally suited for an industrial use given that you have the railroad that it butts up against. And you can see the existing business here. But for the most part, the railroad serves as a divider for this area of town. So again, R10 is a dormant district, but it is zoned MP, so if approved, it would just basically bring all of this over here, and then they could expand their business. So staff had recommended it. It was plan compliant. When it went to the planning board, it was a unanimous decision to approve it. If you got any questions, as always, I'll be glad to go into more detail if needed.
Okay. Open the public hearing, Madam Clerk. Is there any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Adams. I did forget your name. I'm sorry.
How long have I been knowing you?
Years.
Can I ask a question? And I'm just kind of, did we not approve something just like this about a month ago on the backside where it was going to be a piece of property that they were doing?
I think that there was one that was, they had proposed to turn it into a bank or something like that. It was an office use. I think that they were going from an industrial to an office. But I don't think it was this. I think it was in the
I know it's
area.
not this one, but
Right.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out why they just keep bringing, I mean, gives me some concern is once we rezone it, what actually ends up happening to some of this stuff. When you bring me one here and then you bring me
Right.
another here, but thank you.
Yeah.
I was wondering what it was.
Commissioner Booth.
And my question again is similar to Commissioner Adams. Do they own any of the adjacent property to the one that's in here? The current owners, the owners that are petitioning for it?
I think they own this frontage, and just keep in mind that there's no road access to this as well, too. I was going to point that out. I mean,
Right.
like, the only way you can get here pretty much is through the site. So, I mean, they're using it for expansion is what we understand.
All right, thank you.
Okay, are there any speakers? I already asked that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's close the public hearing. Any more comments or questions? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, in case P 2151, I move to approve the rezoning request from R10 Residential District to MP Plan Industrial District and find the request is consistent with the Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan, which calls for industrial and open space. Approval of the request is reasonable in the public interest as the district requested and is in harmony and compatible with the surrounding existing land uses and zoning.
Second.
All in favor?
That is unanimous.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager, I'm sorry.
Item 4J
So
is our
many
first
madams.
contested case, case P21-33.
Yes, before I get into this presentation, Commissioners, I did include something in your packet. We got a letter from the applicant who has requested the board that this case be remanded back to the planning board for further discussion. I think they want to change some of their plans and so forth, and so I didn't want to open it up unless you think that that's necessary. But we do have a written request from the applicant.
Yeah, there you go. Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for bringing that to our attention. I received a call on this from some opposers, and they assured me they weren't going to be here because I checked on this, and that's what, same thing. So at the petitioner's request, I move we take this off for tonight.
And send it back to
and
send it to the planning board.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there has to be an action for that.
Okay, we send it back to the planning board. Do we have to pick a date, or can the
No, I think you just say that and we'll
Okay.
take care of that. Yes, sir.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
And that is unanimous.
Thank you.
The next case is case P21-43.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Manager. So this case, as you can see, sits up in the Eastover area of the county, as indicated by the star. The applicant is Ms. Rose Jones. The request is to go from R40A to the rural residential district. The intent is to add a second home on the back part of the property. Currently, as you can see, it's a sparsely populated area, a lot of agricultural land. There are some single family and some manufactured homes out in this area, but the area in question you can see is highlighted in the red. This is Gabe Smith Road here, and you can see 295 sits up in this area here, just to give you a little bit more of a reference of where we are. The surrounding zoning you can see is predominantly A1. We do have some RR that sits just to the south, and we do have an R30 district that sits here. Eastover water is out there, but there is no sewer. You can see some prevalence of hydric soils that are out there, including the one on this little parcel that we have. So just give you a little bit of background information on this case. This went through 2 planning board meetings. The first case was the applicant coming and requesting R40. Staff had recommended denial. That's why you see this on the screen here, that we didn't feel like it was plan compliant. Eastover's plan says that they want at least 30,000 square foot lots out there. That's why staff predominantly had recommended denial on the case. So when we had moved forward, and you'll see here this toward the end, and I don't want to sort of like muddy up the presentation with the pictures here in just a little bit, but it went for an alternative recommendation at the planning board. We met with Ms. Jones. We went back to her office. The planning board asked staff to work with her. We worked with her and then came up with a district that met the land use plan of 30,000 square feet. That's why the alternative recommendation is R30. Is what came out of the planning board, and that's I believe that's also reflected in your motion if you decide to approve that. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out before we get too much further, so when we get to the end, you're not confused about how things shook out as far as votes. But this is the subject property. You can see single-family home sitting right on the street. This is looking south on Gabe Smith Road. This is looking on the property, looking just across the street, another single-family home. And this is looking north. You can see our sign out there that we, of course, put out there for our advertisement requirements. So again, staff had recommended denial of the R40 application. When it went to the planning board, they also supported the recommendation of RR, but also offered R30 as a supportive district. And staff had no problem with that recommendation. We feel like that it's plan compliant. So that's all I have.
Okay. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
There are speakers this evening. We have one speaker in favor, no speakers in opposition. Our speaker in favor is Ms. Rose Jones.
Welcome, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Use the microphone.
Microphone.
I don't trust the mic because it's contaminated if it's okay.
Oh, okay.
You can step back and just speak a little louder because it's got to go through the
Okay.
thing.
I'm just here to answer any questions. I'm hoping that we can come to a, favorable solution for this, for this. I'm recently moving back from Georgia, recent widow, so I just want to, my mom is stay across, in the other home there. She's about 82, so I'm just gonna hang out with her. And I'd like to just move next door, and start over, sort of. I lost my husband through COVID, so, I'm just starting over. So I'm hoping we can, I hope I can build my home. Thank you.
And thank you. One second. Are there any more speakers?
There are no further speakers.
Let's close the public hearing. Commissioner Adams.
Just two questions. One, because you said there's no sewer, it's got a perk, so is it, if she puts another structure there, I guess it has to go through the health department to make sure that,
Yes, sir.
okay. Have we done that, or did they?
We usually don't do that until this
Okay,
gets approved, because a lot of people don't want to expend that money until they know that they have the entitlement.
And then I just asked, I guess you went back and talked to them, you okay with what they're proposing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Booth.
That was my question to her, was she content with the proposal on the R30? And since she is, I am.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I understand the terms, but that just means.
Yeah, that, you get what you want. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Let me.
The agreement that he summarized, you're okay with?
Mr. Chairman, let me
Okay.
clarify something to make sure it's straight on this. Mr. Howard, have y'all confirmed, I mean, I know she's got 1.42 acres. Is any of that in the road right away? Has she got at least 60,000 square feet there?
It's not in any right-of-way that I'm aware of.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right, then you're
yeah.
okay. Then you're good then. All right, let's making sure.
Thank you, sir.
It's supposed to be the term. I'm just asking.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any more speakers?
There are no further speakers.
Oh, you already closed.
You finished? Okay.
I'm ready.
Close the public hearing. Commissioner Council.
I recommend approval
You want me to read the whole thing, even though you did that part?
of the rezoning request from R40A to R30A residential district, which allows for single-family dwelling units with a lot area of 30,000 square feet or above at the August 17th, something's wrong with my glasses. Would you finish reading that?
Approval of the R30A is reasonable and in the public interest as the district request is in harmony with the surrounding existing land use, zoning, and lot sizes. And I would second that motion, Mr.
I'll
Chairman.
second it. Well, okay.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
And that is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Now we need to go back to case P21-36 that moved from uncontested to contested. Mr. Howard.
Thank you very much. This is a case that was also deferred from last month's meeting. Just for the sake of the public, I'll just go through real quickly of the presentation. You can see where the case is located out in the Cedar Creek area with the star that's on the map here. The applicant is Kathy Tatum Vinson. The agent is Bartlett Engineering and Surveying, PC. The request is to go from A1 Agricultural District to CP Planned Commercial District. The intent is for some small-scale retail, but you can see where this is. This is on Cedar Creek Road, sitting pretty much kind of or I should say very close to the Stedman Cedar Creek Road that you can see right here. That's running, I guess, north and south or in that fashion. So for 12.36 acres. The subject property itself is pretty much wooded right now. You can see it's a scattering of wooded tracts, single-family homes, and then a church. As far as zoning is concerned, it's predominantly, as you can see on that side of the street is A1. You do have some R40 that's across the street. There are some hydric soils, but there's no water and sewer out here. When we looked at the plan as staff, the plan does indicate that there's a commercial node, which is just basically a point of commercial activity that sits out here in this area, of which this tract does sit within that node. So it does encourage the development of small commercial uses and including some retail activity. So staff had recommended approval of the case. You can see that this is standing on this on Cedar Creek Road, looking onto the subject property. This is looking on the south view with the tract immediate on the left-hand side of the road. This is standing on the tract, looking across the street. Let me put this in full view for you guys. There you go. So you across the street. This is looking north with the track immediately on your right. You can see the zoning sign. That's the track that we're talking about here this evening. So staff had recommended approval of the request. Planning board had supported that request by a 9-0 vote at their last meeting. I believe that some of the discussion at the last commissioner meeting is that you would ask the applicant to come back with some materials addressing stormwater. This does sit on Locks Creek. I think, Commissioner Adams, you had some concerns about flooding. The engineer actually submitted a number of documents which should have been included in your packet, and I believe he also passed up some information to Ms. Candace here that I believe was put at your dais in case you have any questions. So that's all I have for this, and he's here to answer questions as per the last meeting that we had talked about this. So I'll try to answer what I can. If not, I'll pass to the applicant.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
We'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
We have one speaker in favor, two speakers in opposition. Our speaker in favor is Attorney Thomas Neville.
Welcome, Thomas Neville, attorney.
Didn't think I'd wear the mask this long tonight, but I thought I was on the uncontested agenda as well. But anyway, things change. Thank you so much for listening to me tonight. I do also have Mr. Olivero, who's here from the engineering firm, who can answer any questions that you might have. I would ask that I think I have 12 minutes, the only speaker, is that correct? 3, and that's it?
Your time is running.
So I better talk quick then. Okay, well, let's just skip to the stormwater report. So if we skip to the stormwater report, you've been provided that already. What I really want to emphasize on this, if you go to your report, is how much of this land is actually impacted, or how much of it is developable, is actually going to be developed. A very small portion of it is actually developed. In fact, arguably there's more impact upon the property if it's left A1 and developed as it is to CP. Quick numbers, as you see, 11.2 acre tract actually, 2.2 proposed to be developed. Of the 2.2, actually only 0.86 is in impervious structures or impervious disturbance. Is that a drainage area of 1.79 acres? Talking very quickly, probably talking too quickly. We got more time than I thought I had. But if you look at the surrounding area, I do think CP makes sense. It's in a commercial node. But if you go to the actual stormwater impact, which was the major concern, the amount of land that's actually being disturbed here, the amount of impervious impact is very small related to the entire tract. If you go to the part of the report that shows the actual math behind the impact, it's entitled the Watershed Hydrograph, which looks like this. It's really the summary of all the documents that you have. And what it shows is actually because of these detention pond, which is a permanent detention pond, that when you look at the CFS, which is cubic feet per second, the amount of water flow is actually restrained or detained through the detention pond, even through the 100-year flood event. So arguably we are improving the amount of water being introduced into any type of watershed with the installation of the detention pond. Again, only 1.79 of the acres actually even flow into the detention pond. The rest of the water that would fall actually flows outside the detention pond just through natural topography. So if anything, we're improving the rate of water being introduced in this area. And again, it's a positive impact. Again, Mr. Oliveira is here. He did not sign up to speak, but the engineer is here if you have any questions of him. I don't know what the opposition has, because until tonight, we weren't aware of there being any opposition. So if they have specific points, we would ask that you at least ask us to respond to those. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Our first,
We have one
Can I have a
question.
please? Mr. Oliveira. And I know I'm out of my way here when I got an attorney and an engineer trying to explain something here. But what I'm gathering from what I'm reading is, with this development, with the stormwater drain you have designed, it is going to be less of a stormwater problem than it would be if we left it alone. Is that true?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, that's what I was taking. I didn't go to school. But, all right, thank you.
But let me ask you, but that's the surrounding area, right? Because Locks Creek, the neighborhood sits below that and behind that. So you're just talking about, when I look at, you're talking about in that area right there where you put the pond and right in that particular area, right? You didn't look down at the Locks Creek subdivision and what the runoff would be down there. I'm just asking, I don't know.
No, we looked at what was going into the creek at our site, and our numbers show that we are lowering the amount of flow that goes in there up to a 100-year event.
Okay, two of those.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Booth.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, sir. Same question, I think, to you. I see the sketch in both the first page and then, I guess, the second and the third to the last one. In your calculations for that pond, is that part of the required plan, or like I just see proposed stormwater. I don't see any like square. I may have missed it, but I don't see any square footage on it, or even on the last page. I just see stormwater pond. I don't see, like, what were your calculations that had to be in order to lessen the fall?
Let me just address that specifically. As I understand, the entire package is provided to y'all.
Okay, well, then that's fine. I just,
So,
since that was
if I may.
brought up, I just want to make sure that whatever to get to these numbers is the required pond, not just if we built a 10-foot pond, it would do this, but we're going to build an 8-foot pond.
Yes, sir. My only point was you were provided the entire package. All I brought tonight was just the first four pages and not all the data behind what you previously provided.
Okay. Well, I just saw preliminary design and all that, and then on the intro page, it says, to maintain the site's current peak runoff rate, a wet pond will be constructed to offset, but again, it doesn't say, shall according to his calculations. If it's according to his calculations, I'm good.
That's all part of the preliminary stormwater report that we had turned in. It should be in your package, and that's what all these calculations and graphs, and it's what's required by the state to reduce the amount of flow. So that's how the pond was sized, and also based upon the soils in the area.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers?
our first speaker in opposition is Ms. Vicki Mullins.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Vicki Mullins. I live at 5905 Turnbull Road, okay? And I wanted to speak against this. Let me just point out, this is not Locks Creek. This is Cedar Creek. And if I could show you, if you look, oh, I don't know how to use that thing. Anyway, just, if you, Stedman, Cedar Creek Road, follow it to that turn. That right there was Dudley's Pond. Dudley's Pond has now, when Matthew came through, it flooded. That whole creek that goes behind Cedar Creek Baptist, okay? That whole pond is no longer there, but it got turned back in to wetlands, which is 3 houses from that property. If you go right behind it, there's a house there, one, and on the turn was Miss Dudley's house. But that pond has done been turned back into wetlands, okay? We already have a Dollar General on one corner, right there at that caution light. We also have a shortstop. Then the next part across from this property, almost adjacent to it, the creek runs under the road that had flooded, okay, and it does flood. And we don't need anything else down there, okay? I mean, like I say, Cedar Creek Baptist is right there, and this creek runs under and right behind our church, okay? But just keep in mind that Dudley's Pond was turned back into a wetlands, which runs right up toward this property, okay? And I'm just hoping that you guys, and of course you know there's Gen X, big time. And it's getting, you know, of course it's worse and it's expanding. So I just hope you guys will take into consideration and, you know, go against this. All right, thank you.
And thank you for coming.
Our second speaker and last speaker in opposition is Mr. Walter Mormon, Jr.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Walter Mormon Jr., 4902 Cedar Creek Road. I've spent, I'm not here to give you my resume, but I've spent 40 years doing land use planning. So I'm here to speak as a citizen, but also as a qualified land use planner. I was licensed by the state of North Carolina as a landscape architect. I've formulated master land use plans all over the state. The land use plan for this area calls for the protection of rural landscapes. When this part of the county was first zoned, there was a lot to be said about outdoor and rural recreation, protecting farmland, those sort of things. The fact that this has a big red circle there on that intersection is of no consequence. Everybody's making a big deal about that. It's designated as commercial. I tell you, I've drawn a lot of those big red circles. If you look closely, that big red circle cuts through the middle of a lot of properties. Rarely, if ever, do you rezone half of a property. It's thematic only. It just means that there's potential for commercial development in that intersection. It does not mean this specific property is appropriate to be commercial. The entire border of Cedar Creek runs right along the side of this property. And as the former speaker pointed out, there's a big washout underneath the road there, coming right down behind the church.
Can you use the pointer, because I don't see a red dot now, I'm just kind of lost now, and I want Mr. Mormon to be able to kind of tell me exactly what he's talking about.
This is Cedar Creek.
Okay.
Runs from here down to the river right away. Any commercial development, we learned this in 5th grade. You cut down trees, you put up rooftops, you put up asphalt, you're gonna get more runoff. In addition to that, you get all the heavy metals, all the oils and everything else, the pollutants that run off of commercial parking lots. In my experience over the years, I've also served as a county planning director, and I've seen some good plans and some bad plans. With proper deference to the highly qualified engineers here, it's just a bad idea, regardless of the site plan. To go to a straight commercial zoning would allow anything that's on that list, and y'all have looked at the ordinance, motel, car parts, irregardless of the nice site plan that they're presenting and stormwater and all that, anything in the future is on that list. And I would urge you, if you see fit to rezone this property, not to go to a straight commercial rezoning, but to consider a conditional zoning where a specific site plan can be reviewed.
Thank you so much. Are there any more speakers, Madam Clerk?
There are no further speakers.
Let's close the public hearing. Any questions or discussions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Key.
Back to the engineer, Mr. Olivera, please. Did anything, the first time you guys heard anything tonight from an opposition, would you have anything you wanted to add about the stormwater capabilities, the impervious property that you're putting on there? Do you believe that that stormwater pond it would adequately handle this at that level? The problems that you just heard.
Well, what occurs off our site and beyond our site is out of our control. We're controlling the amount of impervious drainage that our site will be producing, and we're lowering that and effectively lowering what is going into Cedar Creek existing.
Let me see if I can ask it a different way, because I think I understand. What you're saying right now, if that site wasn't, the flooding happened without your property there, right? The flooding happened that they're concerned about. So if you put this up there, I think what I'm hearing from the other citizens is that it has a higher level chance of flooding down in the Cedar Creek area than without your building there.
That's a little speculative, but we will be lowering the amount of flow going into Cedar Creek with the development we're doing, including the SCM pond with this stormwater control measure.
And even with the impervious, you believe
Yes, sir.
that will still be out there?
Those are the calculations included in the report.
Okay, and if you'll leave me a little bit of latitude, Mr. Chair, Mr. Howard? So I've known Mr. Mormon a while. What's the good of a red dot if you're not going to even look at it? I mean, it obviously is a commercial area that's in there. It is growing. It's grown a lot. I mean, it's right in the middle of the red dot. Where did the red dot come from?
It was part of the planning process.
Okay,
Right.
so the planning, and when was this planning done?
The southeast Cumberland, let me look that up real quick, excuse me. Was it 17? Yeah, it was 17.
Okay.
2017.
I mean, from my position here, it's a commercial area. They're taking away water runoff. It would seem like this would be, it would be speculative to think that it wouldn't be better. But that's just me right now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any more?
And Mr. Chip, I do understand, but once you build this commercial, and it can be used for all those commercial purposes, and according to what you do with the parking lot and the parking and all that, there's gonna be some runoff on this. It's just, it gets to the point of when you ask a question, I guess that's the lawyer in me, when you just say it's not gonna run into the creek, but you don't talk about anything else around it. It's just not gonna run into the creek, but it doesn't talk about all of the other areas which were raised as concerns, so.
Doesn't that matter what side you're on or how you feel?
It is.
Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Are there any motions?
That's Mr. Keith, get him.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion in the case of P2136. I move to recommend approval of the rezoning from A1 Agricultural District to CP Plan Commercial District, and find that the request consistent with the Southeastern Cumberland Land Use Plan. The request is reasonable and in the public interest because the subject site is located within the commercial node and is within proximity of a road intersection. Also, as central water and sewer lines are not at or near this site, the scope and intensity of commercial development will be limited.
Is there a second? So it look like the motions die.
Okay?
Madam Manager.
Well, I guess the opposite would be for case P2136, I move to deny the rezoning request from A1 Agriculture to CP Plan Commercial District, and find the request not consistent with the Southeastern Cumberland Land Use Plan. Denial of the request is reasonable and in the public interest.
Is there a second? Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Wait, can I have a comment, please?
Yes.
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Keefe,
you.
I'm sorry,
And I'll make this very quick. In fairness to the applicant, they went through the planning board system, they went and they met, they pleaded their case, and here tonight, they came up and they had no idea what was gonna be happening here, and it was all done on speculation, so they didn't even have a chance to respond. So to be fair to the applicant, I think coming in at the 11th hour with an opposition without any chance to redo it is a little unfair to the applicant. That's all I'm going to say. I think I know where the recommendation is going to go, but it's a bad policy.
Commissioner Booth.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Parliamentarian, since there hasn't been a a motion that has passed yet. Would we be out of line, out of order, than to send this one back to the planning board for them to get an opportunity to chat?
Well, but there is another motion on the
Right.
been made that's not consistent with that. But just for further clarification for Commissioner Adams' motion, I would ask though that, and this needs to be done before you send it back, that you would, you said denial of request is reasonable in the public interest. You need to state the reason why. What I've heard y'all talk about is that the area is flood prone and you believe that this would just enhance, further increase the flooding.
Yes, Commissioner.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, and I made that motion, but I guess the question to me would be kind of the same procedural kind of thing that I did the last time that I was asking where it came up here, is does it just get to be contested because somebody
Signs up.
speaks? I mean, how do we, what's the procedure, I guess, is, because I want to be fair to everybody and,
Yeah.
and not being whichever way it goes, but if, when I go to court, you know, you want to be able to know what the rules are.
Sure, yeah,
And
yeah.
if the rules change in motion, yes, sir. So,
If you will, I can explain that. Yes, sir. So, I mean, if an applicant comes in and staff is recommending opposite of what the applicant is proposing, that automatically is a contested case.
Gotcha.
If we're in agreement with the applicant, but it goes to the planning board, and then the planning board says, or in the opposite, it goes to contested. I'm just trying not to get mixed up here. So it's just sort of like X, Y, so I'm trying to figure this out. So, you know, so for something to be uncontested, because I know we brought that up today, is that if, I'm sorry, I'm gonna back up. Third condition is if everything goes through, even if the planning board agrees, we agree, and the applicant agrees, but somebody signs up to speak in opposition at the planning board meeting, then it automatically goes to a contested case.
Okay.
Yeah, so to stay uncontested, because I know we had about the vote, the way staff looks at it is that if the planning board as a body approved it, and there's, you know, and we are recommending it, and the applicant agrees, then we put that on uncontested, because as a body, the planning board has put their approval on the request.
So none of these people came and spoke at the planning board? Because if that's the case, it should have been contested. Under your rules, if somebody spoke at the planning board, if that was your third scenario, it would have been a contested case.
Hold on one second.
So I guess we can lose.
Nobody spoke.
No one in there wanted to vote.
Uh-oh.
No one.
They sure
There's
did.
a difference.
You might not be close enough.
Been out of order.
Listen to you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we had put this as a, I believe as an uncontested case because it was uncontested on the agenda. Yeah, I'm sorry. We had put it on the uncontested case because when I looked at the research of the agenda that this was on in August, it was an uncontested case then, and my understanding was that the board just wanted to get more information from the applicant at that time. I don't believe we had anybody speak up at that meeting. I'd have to look at the minutes or whatever.
I'm not sure if anybody spoke.
It was on uncontested
I thought one
in
guy
August.
came up and spoke, but maybe not.
Right.
Okay, I don't know. I don't remember. Okay, yeah, Mr. Booth.
Yes, Commissioner Booth.
Subject to Commissioner Adams' approval, I'll either amend his motion or make a substitute motion to send this back to the planning board for reconsideration based on what they've heard here tonight. Because I tend to agree with you. I don't think there was anyone bodily here, but I think there was a lot of questions, and that's why we asked them to come to answer the questions. So now, they've done that, but now we have a whole new cast of folks here that, you know, development's coming, but I think if everybody can sit down and try to plan it, it's a whole lot better than jamming the spoon down the baby's throat.
Sure.
So I would substitute or do an amended motion to send this back to the planning board.
And I guess the other question I have, Mr. Chairman, is it went to the planning board, came on as uncontested. I got a lot of stuff in my packet that might have not been presented. The other side doesn't get to get that information? I don't
When you
know.
say the other side,
Well, whoever was speaking against in opposition or whatever in terms of, I got the I don't know
Well,
if
we
they've
send the
ever seen-
packet out, we post it up on the website, and we
But
we
did they,
put it out.
did they get the,
That's the first
engineer?
time I've met these two people
Okay,
in my
I
life, was
understand.
about 30 minutes ago.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not up to you, that's not your fault. I
Right.
understand.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion on the floor.
A motion to deny.
Motion to
And
deny.
a second.
Was there a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's take care of that.
I just made a substitute motion, though.
Is there a substitute motion?
Yeah, I made a substitute motion to
Send it back to the planning board to hear further consider the matters presented tonight.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a substitute motion on the floor and was seconded. Let's call for the vote. All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Keefe and Booth. Voting in opposition, Commissioners Lancaster, Council Chairman Evans, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Stewart. The substitute motion fails.
Now we go back to the original motion. Is, all in favor?
Of
Vote-
denying it.
Of denying, I'm
Of
sorry.
denying.
Is your second still held?
Yeah, it was a second.
All right, voting in favor of denying the rezoning is Commissioner Lancaster, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Booth, and Commissioner Stewart. Voting in favor, in opposition,
I don't
Commissioner
know whether
Council.
I'm
The
right or
motion
wrong at this
passes.
point.
You okay? Thank you. All right.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to item number 5. We have one item of business on the agenda this evening. This was an item that was discussed at your agenda session. The board vote at that meeting was not unanimous, and that's why it's an item of business. As you may recall, the Board of Education purchased 20.8 acres on Elliott Farm Road from Broadwell Land Company. This was for a future elementary site. The purchase price was $600,000, with $200,000 being paid at closing and the balance on a promissory note. That balance is to be paid upon the extension of water and sewer by the developer, and that is where we are today. The Board of Education is now seeking approval of the purchase price as required by North Carolina General Statute 115C-426F. Dr. Connolly, on behalf of the Board of Education, is requesting that the board consider approval of the purchase price. We have with us this evening the attorney from the Board of Education as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions
I got a motion.
or any discussion? If not, Commissioner Council.
I move that we approve this item as presented.
Second. All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioner Lancaster, Commissioner Council, Commissioner Keefe, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Stewart. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Booth. The motion passes.
Thank you, sir. Madam Manager,
That brings us to item number 6, the board's nominations.
are there any nominations for the Board of Adjustment?
Yes, sir. Mr., wait a minute, righty. No, that's the, what you call it? All right.
Yeah, he does. But we did like this.
One vacancy for the Board of Adjustment.
Yes, I thought that,
You got somebody.
who's got?
No, everybody on that.
I don't think anybody. Let's bring it back.
Are they, let me ask this, are there two different, one says an appointment to the Board of Adjustment, and the other is so it's two different things?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
This one is the nomination.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I would nominate Wisteria Williams to be, well, wait a minute, no, that's not what I wanted to do, because it was, I'm sorry. This is my fault, and I would take
Yes, sir,
that
it is.
because, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, one of the things was that there are alternate members, and I think that one of the, as soon as my computer comes up, one of the alternate members who've been going to the meetings the whole time should move up. And so if my computer would work, it doesn't seem to.
You know who it is?
Put it on
Now I get the Board of Education.
So is Gregory Parks? is
No,
he-
that's different. He's gonna be an appointment. I would nominate Vicki Mullins,
I'll second
Chairman.
that.
She's an alternate. She's eligible for reappointment for 2 additional terms.
Vicki Mullins.
Yes.
For nomination for the Board of Adjustments.
Yes.
For the Fayetteville Area Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Mr. Chairman.
There are 3 vacancies.
Thank you. Good thing I looked at that because I thought it was 2. But anyway, it is 3. I would nominate Tony Kostasa-Poulos. Did I get that right, Mr.?
Kotsopoulos.
Oh, Kostopoulos. Oh, you didn't put the whole thing out there. Okay. And for, Ms. Sheba McNeil, and there are categories. And for the 3rd one, I would nominate Mr. Jimmy Keefe.
Commissioner Adams, could I clarify which 2 are being nominated at large?
Yes, you would have, Mr. Poulos would be in the business section. Ms. McNeil and Mr. Keefe would be at large. Or you could put Mr. Keefe in the business. It doesn't matter, either way.
I like being
But
at large.
He's at large,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to the board appointments. We have one this evening for the Board of
Oh.
Adjustment.
Thank you, Madam Manager. I thought it was down in closed session. Commissioner Adams.
I make a motion that Gregory Parks be reappointed as a regular member to the Board of Adjustments.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
That is unanimous.
Now we're down to number 8, the closed session.
Actually,
added one, remember?
Okay.
remember, Mr. Moorfield would like to update the board on redistricting.
Oh, yes, sir. Attorney Moorfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and I'll be very brief. I realized that there are only 2 members of the Board of Commissioners who were on here in 2010 after the last census when we had to redistrict. And maybe it's more for their sake than everyone else because it was quite a task last time. And I understand from the process last time that we've had to redistrict every census since the commissioner districts were established. So we were really getting in a jam this time because we still don't have the final numbers. But we have started the preliminary work on it. We're doing it in-house. The IS department's doing a great job. And I'm very optimistic. And what we looked at now, we've actually had updated numbers since the newspaper report back a couple of weeks ago of in round numbers, 334,000 is total population. It's now up to 336,000 plus. And we'll get the final official numbers next week, supposedly. The legislature has extended the time for counties to do any redistricting necessary until November the 17th. So we may be kind of jammed up in October and may have to have a special, do you have a question?
But that's only if there is a variance in a
Well-
big change of where it is in those districts.
Yeah, and what I want to let you know was, last time it was all right, what redistricting means is you have to have as close as you can to the ideal population in the district so that the voters in each district are electing, having the same vote power. What that means is, if in round numbers, there was 350,000 population with 5 commissioners being in the districts, it doesn't apply to the ones at large, that you would need to have 70,000 times 3 in District 2, which is 210, and 70,000 times 2 in District 1. And that's what you try to get to. And I'm just giving those examples. We are in pretty good shape. The preliminary numbers, and by law, you cannot have more than a deviation from that ideal of more than 5% in each district, in any district, in total 10%, which doesn't necessarily mean it'd be 5 and 5. We're in very good shape, but with the preliminary work we've looked at, right now we are at about 5.38% total deviation with both districts. And that's phenomenal with the history of the way they have been so far apart. So we got our fingers crossed, but we will keep the board updated, and it may be something we can't have together for agenda because of the timing of it, but we will have at least a report on the numbers again at the first meeting in October so we can move this along as quickly as possible. But right now it looks good.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Madam Manager.
Now we're ready for closed session. We have two this evening, one for economic development matters pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A4, and we also have an attorney-client matter pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A3.
That's my motion.
Is there a second?
I was seconded, but, and I don't see Mr. Van Gien, so who's presenting on the economic?
He's in the back room.
Oh, he's back there already?
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Kelly.
I was wondering where you were hiding.